Okay, let's see, schedule for today, if you can read it, changed just a little bit. We're going to be in here basically anytime we're supposed to be in 216 or 217. So we'll start off in here today, then everything else is either here or 209 depending on whether we need a computer lab or not, just so everybody knows that. So. Okay, so our objective today is hopefully to better understand blended learning in order for us to plan for our implementation for the start date in January. We're going to discuss some current problems and concerns today. We're going to cover the new BLT Moodle objectives that they talked about in their BLT meeting. And then everyone will be at the YouTube 101 class, and then after that today we're going to break out into two separate sessions depending on which one you want to go to. So, there we go. It seems like we're a little slow. Okay, so today, really from our last BLT, one of the concerns that was brought up from that meeting was that not maybe everybody understands the concept of what blended learning is. So this session is about exactly what blended learning is supposed to be. And it's all based on this paper by Michael Horn and Heather Stakers. They're the ones that when they wrote this, the state of Ohio built the entire grant based on this paper. So this presentation is really a synopsis of a lot of information from them. And they made some changes on some of the definitions after this paper came out, and actually after the grant was even awarded. So some of the things changed a little bit, but all the information is basically from them. Okay, so this is their definition of blended learning. It's any time a student learns at least part. Oh, I clicked too many times. There we go. PC is like all of a sudden I was defragging it. It's moving really slow. There we go. Okay, so anytime they learn at least part of it here at school and part of it not at school. Okay, so that it's the two of those. And the big thing here is what I underlined, with at least some element of student control over time, place, path, and or pace. Okay, doesn't mean all of them, but they have to have control over some of those. So. And that really comes back again and again as I'm going through this, that there has to be some student control somewhere for it to be truly blended learning, okay? So what is blended learning not? Is the next slide. Okay, it's not traditional instruction. Just if we're teaching it in our class and there's no student control, that's just traditional instruction, okay? So it's not, a traditional instruction is structured educational program. It's our normal, everyday teaching. What it's also not, and by the way, all the presentations today, if you haven't looked, they're shared with you in your Google Docs. So you don't have to take notes if anyone was, I know Mike Eiler was avidly taking notes there. But you don't have to, I mean, the whole thing is in your Google Docs to look at if you want to look at it later. So, and I'm not going to read every single slide to you. That's why I said I'm going to give you the synopsis, but if you want to read it later, you can. So it's not traditional instruction. It also is not technology-rich instruction. Just because technology is involved in it doesn't make it blended learning. Okay, and I think part of this came up. This whole discussion came up because there was confusion that just because a tablet's involved makes it blended learning. Okay, the tablets were not purchased as the sole point of if you use your tablet, you're doing blended learning, because you're not. Okay, the tablets were purchased as a way for students to access our blended learning material. And they don't necessarily have to use their tablet. If your blended learning stuff is to be done at home and they have a PC at home, they don't have to use the tablet. There were some benefits to the tablet. Those benefits being we got to do digital textbooks. Every single class can do technology-rich lessons in class because every student has one. So I just want to point out that just because they use this doesn't make it blended learning. That could just be a technology-rich thing that is a bonus of us getting this grant. Okay? So you don't want to confuse the two with tablet means blended. Tablet means technology rich, maybe. It might be blended, depending on how you use it, okay? But just because they've got a tablet in their hand in your class doesn't mean they actually did a blended learning lesson, okay? Just want to set that apart, because there was some talk that teachers think that if they use the tablet, they definitely did blended learning, and that doesn't necessarily. The big thing here is, for it to be blended learning, student has to have control over time, place, path, or pace. There has to be some self-done time where the student's learning something on their own, maybe using the tablet, maybe not using the tablet, maybe at home, maybe at school. But they have to have some control over it to make it a blended learning lesson. Okay, so this is kind of a further thing of their definition, a graphic of it. So for it to be blended learning, it has to include both parts, okay? It has to include some normal classroom stuff and some non-normal where they have that control over time, place, path, or pace. Okay, again, that's their verbiage straight out of their research paper that they did. This one's a little harder to read. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. Okay, critical part of the definition of blended learning is that some element of time, place, path, or pace. Okay, time means learning is no longer restricted to the school day or the school year. We're not looking at changing our school year. Some schools have. That the 9-month course doesn't have to be 9 months as long as you get it done before the start of the next school year. That's not something National Trails looked into at all. Okay, but some schools have, so they're not limited to the normal school year, but it's not limited to the normal school day. If you give a blended learning lesson, even if you started in class, provide it something they can get to. They can finish it at home, they can do more of it at home, they can review it at home. Place, it's no longer restricted to the walls of the classroom as long as they can get to that content outside of school, and that's one of the things we're going to show you today is the fact that it's, even if they don't have internet access, they're not limited to only doing stuff here. Okay, and by the way, that only affects 11% of our students. We had 270 people do that survey that we did during intervention, and only 11% of them said they did not have internet access. Okay, 80% of them said they had internet and Wi-Fi, and 89% of them said they had at least wired. So they really is a smaller portion than most people think about. Okay, path, learning is no longer restricted to the normal flow used by the teacher. Interactive and adaptive software allows students to learn in a method that is customized to their needs. Okay, so, and again, it doesn't have to be all these things, but one of the things that we have at our disposal for changing the path is the Moodle lesson module can break out on different paths, and by providing stuff online, we can assign different things to different students based on their capability. We don't have to have everyone's got to do project A. You can say you've got to do A, B, or C and put them all online. So you can have them have some choices there. And then pace, learning is no longer restricted to the pace of the entire classroom of students. If you start your blended learning session, for instance, if you're going to do it in class, if you started it in the last 15 minutes of class, if it's something they can download and take home on their tablet, that now pace is their control. If they don't get it done in that 15 minutes, they finish it at home. Or you assign it to be done at home and just have them download it. And I'm going to show you how they can download that stuff on their tablets too. Okay, so here's their definition of blended learning. There's 4 different kinds of blended learning that you can do. Rotation, flex, self-blend, and basically the virtual model. Of those, we are the rotation model. That's what we got funded for. Okay? These other ones, really some of them are ways to replace the traditional teacher. The rotation model is not really a replace the teacher. These are, and part of this grant I had to go and actually score other schools, and in their thing they said, we want to reduce our staff by 20% for our budget, and so they're going to do this one of those models. That was nothing to do with what we wanted to do. We weren't trying to reduce. In fact, one of them I read said we would like to provide teachers pay raises while reducing the staff by 10%. It's like, we're gonna, our plan is to, kill the young and pay the old more money, is what it sounded like when I read this. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm sure all your teachers were right behind this proposal. Did they read this at all? So ours was nothing like that. Ours was about trying to bring new things into our normal classroom. So ours really looked at this rotation model, and there are a couple that they went and bound these all together. These were actually broken out more when we originally did that proposal. So the rotation model is a program where students rotate on some schedule, whether it's fixed by you saying at 15 minutes in a class everyone will do this, or on their own discretion between your normal teaching and something online. Okay, whether that online is a video they're watching, an activity that they're all doing in Moodle at the same time, or on their own, but it's rotating some way in your class between those two. Okay, and it describes what the other stuff basically say. Other things are traditional teaching here. So they're going to rotate either in your class or between things. So as far as what the online learning is, this is their definition of what online learning is. Anytime a student accesses course content or does anything via the internet. If they're touching Moodle to get to something, they're doing online learning. And that's where the tablets came in. We don't have enough computers and computer labs for us to do that on a normal basis every day. We have one free lab and one free cart. And different teachers want to use it for different things, but if you're trying to do something every day, we definitely didn't have the capability to do that. And that's where the tablets came in, giving everybody the opportunity to get online for something every class, every day. Okay? So that's the definition of online. If you've got a link to Moodle, it's online.
But it doesn't have to be linked to Moodle.
It doesn't have to be linked to Moodle, but we do want it linked to Moodle. We want them to hit it from Moodle. And the reason for that is that's the only way we can track and show the state that they're going online. If you have them go straight to a website and don't have that website link on Moodle, there's no way we ever know they went online.
What if we're not setting up the websites we're going to?
What if what?
What if we're not, when I've got kids doing research online over 20 different installation artists, I'm not setting up all these websites.
Oh, you're saying like an open research thing. Right, but if you have the original project on Moodle, where they all click and read the project that you're giving them there, and then they go out, at least we know that they've gone, that's when they're going out online. Right? Because that's the whole point, is we want to have those things on Moodle in the first place. We want to have all that stuff online, and that takes you, 2 minutes to put it on there. Because there's no way for us to track it.
Well, you're talking about just, Brian's talking about just like a project description.
Yeah, I'm just talking about a description. I'm not saying link in every single class. You're talking about copy and pasting into Moodle. And when I say 2 minutes, I'm multiplying that by 4, because really it takes about 30 seconds to say copy and paste.
And then they would do the research online, separate from that.
I'm just saying a starting point. We want as a school everything that we do that we're assigning to be on their Moodle class. And there's no reason not to. If you've got it typed up, hitting Control-C, Control-V, that's cut paste, in Moodle, really is really, really easy and really, really quick. Right? Because if we don't have it on Moodle, then how are they going to get to it? And how are they going to see what that assignment is? And Jonathan's going to talk about that later when he's talking about the Moodle stuff later on today. Because there's a lot of things that we don't have on that are really, really easy to put on. And that's, we've been doing the trainings on Moodle for 4 years, 5 years now. So if you don't know how to do stuff, just come to my room during your plan and we can sit down and talk about it again. But Moodle tracks all those clicks. So as long as we start, and I understand what you're saying, I want everybody to do this project and find research. Now, if we do it as a web quest, it's always better anyway. Maybe 20 is high, but just to open it up too much makes it really hard on kids. If you say start at these 3 websites and then from there find anything else you want to, Because kids, if you just say Google it, they can end up anywhere. Whereas you'll know, as the teacher of your subject matter, what the best, maybe 3 or 4, say, hey, start at these when you're looking for this information, and then you can go anywhere else from there. That's just a recommendation, which is not like, but if you open it up too much, kids can end up anywhere and not really stay on what your project was. So, and that's a discussion later on Moodle, but if we have it on Moodle and it starts from there, then Moodle tracks all that stuff, and we'll be able to give them a report of how much they go online, how much their online usage has changed, which is part of this grant, without us having to say, because what we could do is we could give you a piece of paper and say, hey, every time your kids go online, could you please log it? Well, you don't do that. Okay, that would be way more time consuming. Okay, so the station rotation model, I'm going to go through the different ones of these. I think this was the one that I'm going to go to next. There's a couple of these that we do. The most station rotation is an implementation, kind of what elementary school does now, where they rotate through stations. In their definition, their thought was we all move around. Well, since everybody's got a tablet, you don't have to move locations to move what your project is. Okay? So the rotation includes at least one station for online learning. You don't have to physically move to do that. In your classroom, when you set up your lesson plan, when you're doing stuff, we can do our traditional teaching and just say, okay, now everyone's going to do this project. You don't have to physically rotate when it talks about station rotation. And some limitations that talks about the whole classes, because they have limited resources, rotate through those 4 PCs along the wall. But with the tablets, we don't have to do that anymore. So that was one of the nice things about that. So that's the station rotation model. And the idea there is that there's teacher-led instruction, there's activities, and then there's online learning, and you're just kind of continually rotating your instruction between those items. That doesn't mean that every lesson every day has to change. Okay? Just so everybody understands that. Nobody expects you guys, or any of us, to go out and make every single lesson new. But if we don't do it once a week, and that's what I would say kind of our minimum objective should be, is that once a week we've added some online learning into our class as a minimum. If we do it once a month, we're not doing blended learning. We're just kind of pretending. But once a week we certainly are, and we're going to look at some of the things that we can do on that too. Lab rotation is where we physically rotate between going down to the computer lab or using the cart on some schedule, whether it's ours or we just say, hey, you have to do this sometime today. Again, we don't have to do that. There are obviously some times when you're going to want to. If Judy Barnes is doing Audacity, you cannot do Audacity on your tablet if you're trying to use that specific software. That doesn't mean you can't do a podcast, because it has a recorder and you can make a podcast with your tablet just fine. But there are going to be some applications that aren't going to work on the tablet. So if we're doing that, that's when we really want to make sure we do things smart, and we use the cart in Lab 209 and 210 for that, and obviously make sure you sign up for that when you're doing those kind of projects. A vast majority of stuff that we're used to doing in that lab, though, we can do on our tablets. And some things, Heidi's done a lot of research and done a lot of looking at things that you can do through applications. Look at all those. I mean, there's 800,000 Android apps right now out there. There may be an app that does what you want it to do. You just may not know about it yet. And I can't research all 800,000 because I don't know specifically what each person wants to be able to do. And occasionally Heidi will come up, hey, how do you do this? And I'm like, I don't know. And then we'll have to figure it out. Okay? So anyways, but lab rotation is where you physically rotate between your classroom and the lab on some schedule. And this is how some schools propose to reduce teachers. That basically what they're doing is they have an aide in a lab, and Jonathan's got biology today with all of his orange students, and tomorrow all of his orange students are in the lab with the aide doing online stuff. Well, now he's got his brown students, and they double the day like that. And again, we're not looking at doing anything like that. But that's how some schools are looking at kind of doubling their teacher to student load without raising the number of students in the class with the teacher at any one time. So they basically do their direct instruction, and students rotate through labs, and at any given time they do it that way. We're just looking at using the lab as an additional resource to get to online materials for us to go with our students. We're not looking at having any kind of outside aids or anything to watch our students. The last one, which is one that a lot of you may not know what it is, the flipped classroom. The idea of the flipped classroom, it's a rotation model in which students rotate on a fixed schedule between face-to-face, on campus during the standard day, and online delivery of content of the same subject from a remote location. So what does that mean? The idea of the flipped classroom is that I teach, or I find some material related to what I teach that the student views outside of class and then comes into class already knowing or having viewed that material, and then in class is more hands-on project, one-on-one time. It started by two guys started the flipped classroom in 2007, and if you, in fact, in my flipped classroom class later on today, when we do YouTube 201, we're going to look at some of their videos. Basically, the way they look at it is any time that I would have lectured in my classroom, like now, okay, that I'm doing a lecture, that is watched online from home. And anything that used to be homework, we do in class together now. And whether it's done in small groups, or I give you the homework problem and say, you guys do this sheet, you do that sheet, and you're supposed to work together and talk together through that problem, or whether it's done individually, now as a teacher, I can walk around and look what we're doing and help you out, and the feeling is that you get way more one-to-one time. And what you don't want to do, and what flipped classroom tries to avoid, is having them practice things wrong at night that they don't understand. If they got the lecture on their own, and it, by the way, doesn't say 80 minutes worth of lecture, because we all know there's no way a kid would watch an 80-minute video. They're actually much shorter than that. They try to target around 5 minutes. You might do more than one, but no video over 5 minutes worth of concept, okay? So that's the idea of the flipped classroom, is that they're doing the work with me in class. And a lot of them in the flipped model talk about how kids, particularly college-bound kids, are so worried about getting the right grade on the homework that they are more than happy to cheat off each other just to make sure they turn in an A paper. And they didn't spend any time at all practicing the concept or doing the work that you wanted them to do. And by flipping the classroom, a lot of times they don't even grade what's done in class, because the teacher's walking around the whole time looking at what they're doing, helping them figure out, and then just says, okay, did anybody get whatever? And goes over what the answer was. And it gives you time to be in your room more with the students, as opposed to just being up front and telling them what they need to know, okay? The other thing is with the flipped classroom, it's not about, we gave you guys the tools. Everybody's got a mic in their room. Everybody's got a smart recorder. We bought, if you didn't come down and get one, we bought the document cameras. There we go. I was looking for the word. We got the document cameras. We also got some live scribe pens for the math and science teachers, which we haven't actually passed out yet. I just got them last week. So that you have those tools, but it doesn't mean you need to do it all. There are just as many YouTube videos out there that if you spend, granted, I'm going to spend as long finding a good YouTube video as if I did it myself. Because that's really how long I'm not going to find the awesome YouTube video on how to do something in 2 minutes. But given a little variety, they don't always listen to me. We laugh the next day about the guy's accent, maybe at the beginning of class. How do you like that guy? Especially my class, because they're mostly Indian guys. They have a hard time understanding what they said, maybe sometimes. But you rotate it around on who's giving the instruction. It's not always you. So flipped classroom kind of makes it's fun to do, and you don't have to have internet access to get access to these videos. It's something they can download to their tablet offline, or here at school and then watch offline. So the flipped classroom idea is that they get their instruction and content at home. And when we say home, it doesn't have to be home either, right? I don't have internet. Well, you've got 2 interventions between now and the next time you see me. You can do it during intervention. Okay, because we don't see our kids for 2 days, and if my class, depending on whether it's before intervention or after intervention, they still have 2 before I see them again. So they have more than enough time, especially for a 5-minute video, even if we all gave them a 5-minute video. Okay, but that's assuming we all flip at the same time too, which isn't something we necessarily do every class. Okay, and then individual rotation is when the students rotate individually. We're doing problems. Hey, while we're doing this problem, everybody needs to go and watch this Khan Academy math problem. Make sure you watch that while you're doing that. It's part of the thing. And they do it individually during your class time. So it's the same idea. Our model is the rotation model. Whether you rotate individually, student by student, as a class, it all falls into that rotation model that our grant was specifically for. And this is a picture of how they view the rotation model. They've got places where schools, the whole thing is one big, huge like business building. Every kid's got a cubicle, every kid's got their own computer, and they're rotating between videos, and there are instructors off to the side that they go and watch. And there's software out there that they can even see if a kid's too long on one web page, and they just go to them, hey, I see you're having a problem with that. What can I help you with? I'm like, oh, sorry, I was just watching YouTube, you know. So yeah, there's software out there that keeps track of that. And this is one of the big ways some of the newer schools are doing stuff. We're not looking, obviously, doing any kind of centralized lab. So of these all these rotation models, really the 2 biggest ones for us looking at is the station rotation and the flipped model. And to some limited extent, because we only have 2.5, the lab rotation model, and then individual rotation models kind of as you guys see the use of that in your own rooms. So, but that's what we're looking at. We're looking at rotating back and forth on your plan, how you plan to do it, between traditional instruction.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Especially for like me, I could see where I give them a video to watch, and I could see where some of them wouldn't. Because they just say, well, I'd rather wait and have you show me when I come back. Is there a way I can link that through Moodle to where, say, it wouldn't be a lot, but that they get 5 points
Yes.
if they watch it?
And that's what I do on every single one of mine.
Sure they would watch it?
Right. I have it linked through Moodle, so that number one, I see if they went to it. But you can have it inside a quiz, you can have it inside an online writing assignment, you can do it in anything, any different, everything in Moodle has the ability to embed a video into it. Every single thing. So I have that's one of the things I'm going to show later on today. I have a quiz that the first thing is the video, and then there's 2 questions.
Because I could see if I don't do something like that, they're not gonna do it.
And that's what the guys that invented the flipped classroom, that's what they started with doing, to make sure the kids watch the video. Their big emphasis on the flipped classroom is to make the flip meaningful. If the kids see they get to do better stuff in my class than just sit there and listen to me lecture, because they watch the video, he said, they just watch the video. Because if they sit there and go, I didn't watch the video, and then I have to go back to the traditional lecture, as opposed to we do group time, we're walking around, it's much more adult time in your class when you flip. And most of the kids, and this is based on their research, not my opinion, end up, if you make the time meaningful in class, love the flip, because then number one, I'm not pounding my head against the book trying to figure out what to do. I just got, and especially in the case of math, there's, oh my Lord, math and science are the biggest ones between TED Ed and Khan Academy that already have 1 million. But that doesn't mean yours wouldn't be as good or better. Some of the Khan Academy math ones,
Some are okay,
some are okay, some aren't. I mean, and that's true of any video. That's why I said you're not going to just find the YouTube video that's great in 2 minutes, because some of them stink and some of them are good. Not everyone has an IQ of 150 that's posting a YouTube video. Some of them are half of that. And you go through and you're like, that was completely wrong. So you have to preview that stuff. But yeah, that's the thing. And that's mine right now. I have set up that they have to do a couple response questions to make sure they watch the video. or there's a little quiz at the end, and yeah, it's not a lot of points, but that's how I know you didn't watch the video.
But if I didn't make it even just 2 or 3 points, part of the homework,
Right,
a lot of them will do it.
right, yeah. So, and I would agree with, their thing was eventually they got away from that altogether because the kids were engaged in it enough that they wanted to do it. Plus, they know watching 10 minutes of video is way shorter than the calculus homework they were doing for you before. Maybe. So, but yeah. So anyways, really what's the difference between this and an eDay lesson that we've already looked at? Okay, really, not a lot. It's an eDay lesson that they're going to do at home maybe every day, maybe every Friday, maybe every weekend, maybe twice a week, depending on how you set it up, okay? So the concept is the same, pretty much, between what we did on eDays, and I put a little FYI down here. We're supposed to have our eDays up by the beginning of November, or end of November, sorry. And again, just have to have enough up to cover your 2 days. You can change them as much as you want. And really, my plan is going to be to use them like a flipped classroom. So I'm going to change them to whatever currently I'm on when we get there anyway. And we know we're going to have a few snow days before we even worry about updating. If we haven't had 2 snow days, I'm not going to update yet. Okay, because last year I was all about updating, and I'm like, are we ever going to have snow? Okay, so what is the difference between what we're doing now and what we've done in the past? Okay, it should be at least weekly to be an integral part of your class. Again, doesn't start until January, but you could play with it now. Do a couple now just to see how they work out. My feeling is that particularly on the flipped classroom, if you don't do it a lot, you're going to get exactly what Todd just asked about. That if they don't see the benefit of it, and they don't kind of buy into it, that this is a better way of learning how to do that math problem, whatever, that it's going to be a fight with them. So I think in that one in particular, if you're going to flip a lot, you probably need to do it, at least show them early. Tools available. We have money that we didn't have previously to get stuff. If you don't know, it's $130,000 altogether that we got from the grant. We already got new mics. We got all new Wi-Fi. Every single room has their own Wi-Fi access point. I forgot Ron until last week. We got the new document cameras. If you didn't get one, please come and pick one up. I still have 6 in my room. If everyone takes all 6 of those, then I will buy more. Okay? I don't have stands for all of them, but I'm going to go ahead and buy more stands as well. So if you want to use that, and if you don't know, the idea of a document camera is that
Is there a way we can get extensions? An extension cord?
yeah, I already ordered them. I got a whole bunch in my thing. So Troy Ferguson is using it, his document camera in his art class right now. So let me open it up so you can see what I'm.
Is it still defrag?
No.
I stopped the defrag, but
Acts like it's working.
it acts like it's still defragging. Doesn't it?
He's got like little cameras, which
Okay, so there's a if I had something to put under it, we'll pretend I got something to put under it. Troy's using his to teach how to do stuff in art, and the idea is that he said it was really hard to do on the smart board. He has a Mimeo board, but now he can sit down in class and he can walk through showing kids how to do what he's doing. I'm not going to draw on the paper, but so he can go through and show them how to do it. You can screen capture, record anything you're doing on there. In the case of a math teacher, you could actually just sit there and show them how to do the problems and record at the same time that you're doing that.
But if you're talking about art, where are you drawing?
Yeah, I didn't take the pen off, and I never said I was an artist. So I
Brian,
won't
is that
even.
something that, for example, in some classrooms where their smart boards are, it's a bad location compared to the back of the room. Is that something that can be downloaded onto a tablet so the student can see it at their desk while the teacher is doing it up front?
Download it to their tablet. I guess I don't know what we're saying.
So like what they're saying, that picture they're
Basically a
seeing
live
there,
feed to your tablet.
yeah, can there be a live feed to the tablet for?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So they would actually be able to pull up on their tablet what's on your screen. Yeah, I don't know.
'Cause I'm saying-
Not that I know of.
For example, I know where Olivia Hoffman's smartboard is in the front of her room. If she's got kids in the back, they may not be able to see that all the way. Because their eyesight, they'll probably is better than ours.
Yeah, I mean, when you're interactively doing stuff, no, you probably have to pre-record it if you wanted them to see it. But that would be easy,
Pre-recorded.
relatively easy thing to do. I just open up the smart recorder and I hit record and I start doing what I'm doing, then I hit stop and you post it up there. So anyways, these are the document cameras. If you haven't gotten one and you want one, all you have to do is come by the room. My big thing with when I wanted to say here was that if we don't have something that you found out you need, you have to ask. Now, I'm not guaranteeing if you come to me and say, hey, I need this thing, it costs $1,000, the blended learning committee is going to have to talk about it. If it's $50, I don't think we even need to talk about it. I'll just order it for you. Okay? So it depends on what the price point is. But we have the funding that we haven't had for this. So it's allowed us to do some things that we couldn't do before. So if you think you might need it, please at least come and ask. Okay, so delivering online content. Our objective is deliver online content with students having some control over time, place, pace, or path. Okay, that's the big thing. I haven't said that enough time. That's the big thing that makes it blended learning. It could be in or out of class. Okay, so how do we do that? By the way, if you don't know, you can have your tablet showing everything you're doing at the same time too, so I don't really have to look down. I'm using the Splashtop app that I talked about that you guys all have on your tablet right here. I really don't have to walk right over there. So Google content and make your Google searches as smart as you can. The more terms you put in a Google search, the more defined it's going to be. So if you're looking for stuff, use the words like online art project or online math lessons when you're looking for things, and we can link it to our stuff. If you Google online educational video with your subject, you're going to come up with a whole bunch. There's a bunch of different websites that have good stuff, okay? And we're going to talk about YouTube later on. TeacherTube is great. I'm not against TeacherTube. TeacherTube is all educationally related content, but it's slow. It was wonderful when it first came out. I have a TeacherTube account, and then I got to the point where kids would click on a video, and they'd all be waiting forever for TeacherTube. So that's why I moved away from TeacherTube back to YouTube. Khan Academy, Neo K-12, there's all kinds of sites there that already have great content. You don't have to make your own. I'm not saying not to. I'm saying you don't have to. Okay? And when we record, obviously I'm recording right now. You're not on the recording. Although you could get a flip camera in if you want to show yourself. You could record yourself as well. Okay? When you're doing online content, make sure you're specific with your learning objectives, just like you would in a class. You might want to put the objectives above the video. The objective of this video is to learn so they know why they're watching it. And I said there's virtually no topics you specialized. I think almost anything you want is going to be on the internet someplace. Possibility exists that you won't find something, but if your search is good, you probably will. As far as creating our own content, we have smart boards, memo boards, smart slates. Everybody's got a microphone. We've got the teacher tablets. We have document cameras. We got flip video cameras, and we've got the smart pens. And I said it again here: if you need it, we don't have it. Ask for it. I am sure there are subject areas that I didn't, and we didn't, as a blended learning committee, think about. Oh, they could have used bleh. Okay, and I just thought about Mr. Cheney here. Mr. Cheney might want a tripod. It's a camera, okay? Because I just thought, Jim, how would Jim do that, okay? I just now thought of the fact that we don't have a tripod, okay? Because in his class, he's not going to use a little stand tripod. It's going to flip, put it down here. Somebody would step on it, okay? But you have to ask for it, because I'm not going to think, and Jonathan, when we're in the meeting, and Mike, when we're in the meeting, and Bob, when we're in the meeting, is not going to think of everything that might hit you, okay? So we've got those tools to create our own content. If you think of other ones, please come and see me. Okay? Or if there's one that we thought of that we didn't think you would want, and you don't have it, and you're like, why does he have it? Well, because I thought about it and he was in the meeting. It doesn't mean we're playing favorites. Okay? If you make your own content, We're going to show you how to post it to YouTube and link it to your Moodle site today in the YouTube 101. When we talked, we've already done that as a Tech Tuesday, and we had, I think, 5 teachers at that one. And I'm going to ask those 5 to help be assistants today at that class. The reason that we made this one of the everybody goes to is because if we're going to show online content, everybody needs to know how to post it in the first place. So that's the only one that's, hey, everybody's doing this one. So that's the subject of YouTube 101 today. Okay, online lesson basics, just like eDays. You want to have a content and possibly assessment, just like Todd asked about. Content should be short. I said 15 minutes or less worth of videos, and they recommend 5 minutes per video, really. Look at it as a proportion of your traditional classroom, and make sure you've got some kind of assessment to make sure they actually did that item offline. If all you do is say, watch this video, and you don't talk about it the next day, it's not part of your discussion next day, and there's no graded item, you're going to probably have a low chance that those students watch that. And there's all kinds of Moodle things you can do. You can use quizzes, journals, feedbacks, have them do an essay, traditional paper assignment. There's all kinds of ways that you can assess that, obviously. Anything that you can use to get a grade in Moodle, you could use to assess whether they've done it. This is my last picture. Their definition of blended learning again. The big thing I highlighted, student control over time, place, path, or pace. It's the big thing that need to differentiate online and blended. Okay? Those were the objectives today, and that's what we're going to do later on today. Hopefully we hit all that. I don't know how I'm doing on the timeline. Am I pretty close to our timeline that I had?
8:59.
Does anybody have any questions? The idea of this was to make sure everybody understood the concept of blended learning, not all the tools and everything else. Just so kind of you understand what we're looking to start doing in January. Kind of like adding an eDay into your weekly course, kind of, but not a whole day. A portion of it. The stuff that you've done traditionally to find a new way to do it and blend online in with our traditional classroom. And I would bet that a majority of you already do something online in your classes already. I would say it would be hard to not do anything connected online. Yeah.
I have a question. With the online textbooks, if we have it, of course, like linked through Moodle, and they get on Moodle at home to like read a short story or something, does that count? Or no? Because we
So you have you're saying it's a reading assignment. Yeah. First of all, online doesn't have to be video. Okay. Online reading is still online content. So if I have my an article online or something, I say, hey, read this article about blah, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow. That's still doing blended learning because you're giving them time at their own place, their own pace to do outside of my classroom, and it's still online. So yes.
Yep.
Some homework's blended learning. Where I give a homework assignment, they do it at home, on their own page.
If it's online, because it has to blend online. So just to give them homework isn't blended learning, because blended is blending online.
Well, it has to be online.
Yes.
So if they go to their textbook,
Which is
so if
online.
they use their textbook online and my lesson's online.
Well, like your math was gonna happen.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, if the lesson is
If the lesson's on.
If the lesson's online, because we're talking about content, not assessment, right? The blended is blending content. So if you had them, yes.
They're online.
I mean, if they're getting the content via some online means, whether it's reading or a video, then yes, it's blended learning. Now, just saying go to that and do your homework, that's not blended, because they didn't get any content there. Well, but I mean, if you just said, I posted my PowerPoint there and I gave the same lecture in class, you gave them the content traditionally. The point is that they get the content through some online, whatever. Whether it's
Blended
reading
does
it.
have to be online.
Pardon?
So blended does have to be online.
Yes. It's blending online with traditional. Okay? And the online is to give them control over that pace, path, time. So some portion, doesn't mean all of it. I mean, we're not, the other three are all online. We're doing the rotation where some of their stuff are traditional and some of it's online.
I think having that stuff online as a math teacher would be, for math, as a math student, tremendous. To hear the